it's Mo. It is time to do another Readathon recap. This one is for May. So my Readathon recaps are short videos where I go over all the readathons that I participated in the month, and I talk about the challenges and I talk about how the books that I read fit into them. They're as much for me and my own remembrance as they are for my channel, but one of the things that is for the wider group particularly or especially is that I talk about any readathons that I've found out about throughout that month, or that I've heard about that are happening, or that I have finalized dates on, so that I can put them in one big long list and continue this list every month and every year that I do this, so that that list grows and grows and you can have a running list of all the different readathons that happen. Because I love to participate in readathons, but sometimes it's hard to find out when they are. So I do list every readathon I've heard about in a big running list that I put in the description box, but I don't necessarily always put a name of someone or a connecting video to it. My suggestion to you is that if you're interested in the sound of any of those readathons, is to use my list of readathons to search in the YouTube search and then filter that by newest so that you can find the newest iteration of that readathon or of people doing those videos. One readathon that I think I mentioned in April, but I don't remember, was Cinemarch. This is all about movie adaptations, so it's all about reading books that were adapted to movies or reading books that were adapted from movies or continuations of movies. That sounds like a really fun one. That happens in March. In May was short story month too, I believe, and I'm not sure if I wrote this down a while ago, so I'm not sure if this was a short story month like for me, personal, or if I saw somewhere that it was short story month like nationally or internationally or on someone else's channel. But May being short story month sounds good. I also found out that our next iteration of Summerween or Spring Flingaween or Winterween is happening in July. So this is put on by Olivia Reads a Latte and Gabby Reads, and this is a readathon to bring Halloween into all different times of the year. So it's a time to read horror, thriller, mysteries at different points in the year. And Summerween is the next one that's coming up, and that is going to be July 7th to the 13th, 2023. And there's a bunch of prompts, so I will try to link Gabby's announcement video down below. You still have a lot of time to come up with books. I'm happy that it is kind of the beginning or the first half of July, and I definitely think I'm gonna read like a lot of thrillers for this Summerween. The two readathons that I participated in May were the Asian Readathon and Horror Mayhem. These were the two big ones that I decided I wanted to concentrate on, but I also did read my TBR spin book. Technically, I finished this book the 1st of June, but I'm gonna count it for this readathon recap and not the next one because it was written by an Asian author, because it was my May TBR spin book, and I won't be talking about it next month because I'll be talking about my June TBR spin book. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This is going to show up again when I talk about the Asian Readathon. I also read my book for Savidge prompts. The prompt for Savidge prompts was a borrowed book or secondhand book, so it was super easy for me to pick a borrowed or secondhand book because almost every single one of my books is borrowed or secondhand. I've already done a vlog of my Savidge prompts. I did 3 books for 2 prompts in this one, and I already did a vlog about my TBR spin for May. I will have those linked down below. So on to the Asian Readathon and reading Asian books in general. So May is Asian and Pacific Island Heritage Month, so this is a time when you try to read as many Asian authored books as you can. And I read quite a few, but it's also the Asian Readathon. So the Asian Readathon had 5 prompts, and they were read a book by an Asian author. So all the books I'm going to talk about fit into that one. Read a book featuring a friendship between at least 2 Asian characters. Read a book featuring an adventure. Read a book focused on identity or self-discovery. and read a book with an Asian character who is a hot mess, famous, or eccentric. So those are the 5 prompts for the Asian Readathon, and the books that I read for the Asian Readathon are Moonlight Shadow by Banana Yoshimoto. This is a short story and hits the prompt of featuring a friendship between 2 Asians and going on an adventure, and focused on identity or self-discovery, as well as being an Asian authored work. I read Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This one is really interesting because it's written all in screenplay format. I really enjoyed that one. That one definitely fits the prompt, featuring a friendship between at least 2 Asian characters, going through an adventure, certainly identity and self-discovery, and I would also say hot mess, famous, and eccentric. I read Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. This is a Japanese modern classic. It is a translated work. Moonlight Shadow is also a translated work. Moonlight Shadow was translated by Megan Bacchus. This was translated by Edward G. Snydensticker, and this is a book that features a friendship between at least 2 Asian characters, focused on identity and self-discovery, and I would say a hot mess, actually. The main character in this is a hot mess, for sure. I read The Prince and the Dressmaker. This is an Asian authored work. It is a friendship story, but not between 2 Asian characters. They're 2 Western characters, but it's definitely an adventure. It's definitely featuring self-discovery and identity, and it's definitely hot mess or famous. I read from the Vietnamese 10 Centuries of Poetry, edited, translated, and compiled by Burton Raffel, and this is just what it says on the tin, 10 centuries worth of poetry, so it was really interesting to see ancient to modern being the 1970s, poetry from Vietnamese, which I don't know very much about the Vietnamese culture, so that was really interesting. I read A Bestiary by Lily Huang. This is a nonfiction memoir told in really short vignettes, almost like prose poetry, and this one is authored by an Asian author and definitely focused on identity and self-discovery. I read Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga. This is Syrian work, but if you look on the Asian countries, the Middle East is included in the Asian countries. I don't usually think of them that way, but it was, so I was happy about that. The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I think this was translated by Steven Snyder. This is a dystopian novel written by a Japanese author. I've read 2 other Yoko Ogawa works, and I loved all 3 of them. Definitely highly recommend this one. It's pretty disturbing. The Memory Police fits into the prompts: read a book by an Asian author, featuring a friendship between 2 Asian characters, going through an adventure, focused on identity and self-discovery. I also read If You Are Lonely and You Know It by Yi Yoon Lee. This is a short story, and it is written by an Asian author and focuses on identity and self-discovery, and I would also say features a lead character that's a hot mess. So I read The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This, like I said, is actually a June book, but I'm going to talk about it here. It's written by an Asian author. It features a friendship between at least 2 Asian characters. It is about self-discovery. It is going on an adventure, and it definitely has some characters that are hot messes. Finally, I read The Weddings by Alexander Chi, I believe the author's name is, and this is another short story. It is an Asian authored work, and I think it's about identity and self-discovery. So those are all the books that I read for the Asian Readathon. I was super happy to read so many. And then moving on to Horror Mayhem. This year Horror Mayhem didn't have any prompts, but it is focused on reading books that are horror books under 250 pages, and I read The House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Malerman. I read Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan LaFanu, which is a vampire book that was written 100 years before Dracula. I read Below by Laurel Hightower, and I read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. I did read another horror book, Chuck Palahniuk's invisible monsters. I never know whether to put Palahniuk in horror, but I think he is a horror author, really. This one is over 250 pages, so it doesn't technically count. Memory Police I would also count as a horror, and that is under 250 pages. I read that one on audio. I read The Horror at Red Hook by H.P. Lovecraft. This one was a old horror short story, and I think the most horrific thing about it was how crazy racist it was, but it did actually give me nightmares. It's a lot about child abuse and human trafficking. I also read Wildlife by Jeff Vandermeer. This is another short story that may or may not be a Bigfoot story. Those were all the books and all the readathons that I participated in May. Let me know what readathons you participated in, and let me know if you know any readathons coming up or past that I can add to my list. I'm always interested in learning about more readathons that are happening so that I can make that list bigger and bigger, and hopefully one day it'll be a useful resource, not just for myself but for others as well. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!